Welcome to our 26th Wonderspace journey. Since September 2020, we have been asking the same 6 questions to people from around the world. The questions revolve around life and wonder, places of reset and stories of hopefulness, which I think we need more than ever. This week, our orbit will take us from Western Europe to Central India, and to experience these views with us in this ultimate window seat, we welcome Ivor Peters, also known as the Urban Rajah. For years, Urban Rajah has been innovating and creating new generation Indian food that is now about to be launched nationally across the UK over the coming months. As a business, Urban Rajah also has a compelling social purpose, as you will hear in Ivor's story. The full-length interview with Ivor can be found on the Wonderspace Podcast, which you will find on our website and on most podcast platforms. For this shortened video orbit, Ivor answers 3 of our 6 questions and starts by giving us a short glimpse into his life story so far.
So, a glimpse into my life story so far is that I am a second generation British Asian. I grew up in Britain in the 70s in a place called Slough, and lots of people have poked fun at Slough over the years, but I'm Slough born and bred and proud. And for listeners kind of around the planet, it was at one point one of the most multicultural towns outside of London with the least amount of recorded racial crime. And one of the reasons I think about that is that as immigrants, we would always be in and out of each other's homes. So parents might be working double shifts in a factory and your mate's mum or dad would take you in for tea after school. And so what would happen is you would get to know other cultures and other cultures' food because you would be hanging out with your mates. And so you would end up understanding a little bit more about their culture and their rituals and their customs. And so that's where I grew up, in a single parent household. And it's true, when they say that it takes a village to raise a child, my village was my mates, it was their families, it was my grandparents, it was my mum, my dad, who was still on the scene and living locally, but just not with us. And that's very true. So that's kind of where it started off for me. And I guess the passion around food really started at a young age for me. So being part of an Asian family, we wake up eating breakfast, but thinking about lunch and dinner. And there were 3 smells actually that probably narrated growing up as a child. 2 of them were really good ones, 1 not so good. So one of them was we had a chocolate factory. We had the Mars factory and a Horlicks factory in Slough. So we would wake up like sleepwalking to school, smelling chocolate in the air. It was just like being in Willy Wonka town. That's what it was like. And then walking back from school, you'd be able to tell the cultural background of who was living in a certain house because of the smell of the food that was emanating from that house on your way back from school. So you would smell like jerk chicken and rice, and you would smell onions and garlic. And then the third smell, not the best one actually, was the smell of the sewers from across the motorway on the other side of Slough. Not so good in the summer. So life was rich and pretty colourful growing up. So after spending a career in marketing and comms and PR, and then a really significant period of my life was working with a social action organisation, a global charity called Oasis Trust. And I guess from a really young age, right through to working with Oasis, I had really observed that actually to live a meaningful life is to live a life which is beyond yourself, and actually is about giving. And that really sort of got to me when we were traveling around India, and we were in Chennai, and we had seen how much a little goes a long way to transform lives in the slums, as well as those in bonded labour and human slavery. So my wife and I, when we got back, we thought we're going to run supper clubs in our home. We called it Cash and Curry. You came along, we gave you a 3-4 course feast, and you would pay what you thought the meal was worth. And then all the money would go towards funding doctors, nurses, teachers, and all sorts of social impact workers in Chennai. And that's really where Urban Rajah was born. And the supper clubs turned into a blog, the blog turned into a cookbook, which turned into food festival demos and pop-up restaurants and doing stuff in the media as well. And that's actually kind of all culminated into the growth of the brand and the transformation that we hope to make and the impact that we hope to make. We've been developing a range of retail products that would be available in shops and supermarkets and online as well. And it's Urban Rajah Indian food to go. So it's next generation Indian food. But here's the really exciting thing. So what Urban Rajah will do is feed people the food that they love. It will take your taste buds on an absolute journey, but at the same time, the whole mission is about taking people out of human slavery. There's 40 million people in human slavery right now, all around the globe. And that is bonded labour. That's people who are being trafficked into the sex industry. It's people who are being trafficked so that they can harvest people's human organs. If we can do something which is as simple as feeding people really tasty food, that at the same time helps liberate people and take people out of human slavery, that is worth getting up out of bed every morning and thinking, what can we change today? And so that's really the purpose and the mission of Urban Rajah. Free people's taste buds and liberate people from human slavery. So I think when I think about hope, I also think about miracles. Often people say miracles, they're few and far between, and that's the right definition of a miracle. But I look around me and I see miracles happening every day. People's lives who are lifted out of poverty, out of hopelessness. And I think one of the brands that I just admire and put a smile on my face and just think, yes, that is hope in action. And it's one that's dear to me because I love chocolate, and it has to be Tony's Chocolonely. Come on! That brand is just amazing. They deliver the most amazing chocolate, but the fact is they are slave-free chocolate. They help take people out of slavery, and they have a clean supply chain all the way through. And you know the best thing about it? It is definitely, for me, the tastiest chocolate on the planet. So that's my definition of hope. People who are doing amazing things, but doing them every day by doing the simplest of things. I think when it comes to sharing insight or wisdom, you know, this is stuff that I've picked up along the way, and it's not something that I own. You know, this is plagiarized wisdom, as most wisdom is, right? You know, we learn it through others. There are so many huge issues that we face every day and every generation faces. How can I change the world? And for me, the answer isn't necessarily in that macro sense. The world is made up of people. So maybe it's about whose world can I change? I may not be able to change the world, but I can change someone's world. And that's really my piece of insight, wisdom, probably challenge is whose world are you changing?
More information about Ivor can be found at urbanrajah.com. In Ivor's story of hopefulness, he talks about the chocolate brand Tony's Chocolonely, which is well worth checking out at tonyschocolonely.com. Ivor was also keen for us to promote a great charity fighting slavery, which you can find at justiceandcare.org. To join the Wonderspace community and share your own wonders and stories of hopefulness, or to listen to the previous 25 interviews, the website is ourwonder.space. I want to thank Ivor for joining us on this Wonderspace, and I hope you can join us next week for more wonders and stories of hopefulness.